Deep in the heart of the Andes, shrouded in mist and mystery, lies the legacy of a civilization that defies explanation. The Inca Empire, with its towering stone cities, intricate road networks, and breathtaking achievements, vanished almost as suddenly as it rose, leaving behind puzzles that still baffle the brightest minds today. What secrets are hidden within those ancient walls? What truths lie buried beneath centuries of silence? Imagine standing at the edge of Machu Picchu, feeling the weight of history pressing down on you, knowing that every stone, every pathway, holds a story waiting to be unraveled. This is a world where legends and reality blur, where even archaeologists armed with cutting-edge technology are left scratching their heads. From the moment the first Spanish conquistadors laid eyes on the Inca's grandeur, they were awestruck by what they couldn't understand. How did a people without iron tools or the wheel construct monuments with such precision that not even a blade of grass can slip between their stones? Why did they abandon their most sacred sites without a trace? And perhaps most chilling of all, what happened to the vast treasures rumored to be hidden in lost cities, waiting to be discovered? These aren't just questions for history books, they're invitations to step into a real-life adventure where every clue leads deeper into the unknown. Today, we're peeling back the layers of time to explore 30 of the most jaw-dropping mysteries the Inca left behind. Some will challenge everything you thought you knew about ancient engineering. Others will send chills down your spine, hinting at rituals and beliefs so far removed from our modern world, they feel almost otherworldly. This isn't just a journey through ruins, it's a descent into the heart of an enigma. So, are you ready to walk alongside the archaeologists, the explorers, and the dreamers who have spent lifetimes chasing these secrets? The stones are whispering. It's time to listen. Deep in the uncharted reaches of the Amazon rainforest, where tangled vines and rushing rivers guard their secrets fiercely, whispers persist of a city beyond imagination. Paititi, the last refuge of the Incas' lost gold. For centuries, explorers have risked everything, lured by tales of temples dripping with treasure, walls encrusted with jewels, and a civilization that vanished without revealing its final stronghold. But what makes this legend so irresistible isn't just the promise of wealth, it's the chilling possibility that somewhere beneath that emerald canopy, an entire chapter of history lies untouched, waiting to rewrite what we know about the Incas' final days. Spanish chronicles from the 16th century speak of Inca rulers fleeing Cusco with unimaginable riches, disappearing into the jungle to establish a new empire, one that would never be found. Fast forward to modern times, and the mystery only deepens. Satellite images have revealed strange geometric patterns in remote regions of Peru, sparking theories that Paititi's ruins could be hidden in plain sight, obscured by centuries of overgrowth. Expeditions armed with LiDAR technology have scanned the terrain, uncovering what some believe to be man-made structures swallowed by the forest. Yet every apparent breakthrough only leads to more questions. Why has no definitive proof emerged? Could the terrain be so hostile that even today's technology struggles to penetrate it? The allure of Paititi isn't just about gold, it's about the echoes of a people who defied extinction. Local indigenous stories describe encounters with cloud warriors, mysterious figures said to guard the city's entrance. Some researchers speculate these could be descendants of the Inca, preserving their ancestors' last sanctuary. Others suggest Paititi might not be a physical place at all, but a spiritual concept, a metaphor for the Incas' unbroken connection to the land. Yet for every skeptic, there's an adventurer who swears they've seen the glint of gold in the riverbeds or stumbled upon carvings that match no known Inca design. What's undeniable is the hold this mystery has on the human imagination. From the doomed expeditions of the 20th century to cutting-edge archaeological surveys, the search for Paititi forces us to confront how much we still don't know. Could the answer lie in some uncharted valley protected by nature's labyrinth? Or is the real treasure the stories themselves proof that even in our age of satellites and science, some secrets refuse to be unearthed? Perched high above the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, the colossal stone walls of Sacsayhuamán defy logic. These zigzagging ramparts, built from blocks weighing up to 120 tons, fit together so seamlessly that not even a sheet of paper can slide between them, a feat that modern engineers still struggle to explain. But what's even more baffling than how they built it is why. Was this sprawling complex a fortress, a temple, or something far more enigmatic? The Spanish conquistadors believed it was a military stronghold, marveling at its strategic position overlooking the city. The massive walls, some towering nearly 60 feet tall, certainly suggest a defensive purpose. Yet there's a haunting elegance to Sacsayhuamán's design that whispers of deeper meaning. The zigzagging patterns mirror the lightning bolts of Illapa, the Inca storm god, leading some researchers to argue this was a sacred space where rituals honoring the heavens took place. During the summer solstice, sunlight aligns perfectly with the stone formations, bathing the site in an otherworldly glow, something no mere fortress would require. Then there's the underground world beneath it. Recent explorations have revealed a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers, some filled with carved stones that bear no obvious practical function. Could these passages have been used for initiations, storing sacred objects, or even astronomical observations? The Incas had no written language, so their intentions remain locked within these stones. Local legends speak of Sacsayhuamán as a place where the spiritual and earthly realms met, where shamans communed with ancestors through ceremonies lost to time. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue lies in the stones themselves. Unlike most Inca constructions, which used precisely cut but standardized blocks, Sacsayhuamán's megaliths vary wildly in size and shape, yet each fits perfectly into the next like a three-dimensional puzzle. Some researchers propose this wasn't just engineering. It was a form of encoded knowledge, a map or message meant to be read by those who understood its language. Others wonder if the site's true purpose was erased, rewritten by time and conquest, leaving only these silent sentinels of stone to guard the truth. The mystery of Sacsayhuamán lingers not just in its unanswered questions, but in the way it challenges our assumptions. Why would a civilization pour such staggering resources into a structure that defies categorization? Whether fortress, temple, or cosmic blueprint, one thing is certain: this was no ordinary place. Every curve of its walls, every shadow in its tunnels, seems to whisper that we're only beginning to grasp what the Inca truly understood. Machu Picchu stands as a crown jewel of Inca architecture, a fortress of stone clinging to mist-shrouded peaks. Yet its greatest mystery isn't how it was built, but why it was left behind. Unlike other Inca sites ravaged by Spanish conquest, this mountaintop sanctuary shows no signs of battle or forced abandonment. It's as if one day the inhabitants simply walked away, leaving their homes, temples, and artifacts untouched. What could have driven them to abandon such a meticulously crafted haven? Theories range from the practical to the profoundly spiritual, each raising more questions than answers. One compelling explanation points to the threat of Spanish invasion. By the mid-16th century, the conquistadors were sweeping through the empire, toppling cities and dismantling temples. Some historians suggest Machu Picchu's residents fled preemptively, vanishing into the jungle to escape enslavement or conversion. Yet there's a flaw in this logic. No Spanish chronicles even mention the site, and its isolation would have made it a poor strategic target. If fear drove them out, why leave behind precious objects like ceremonial pottery and tools? Then there's the water theory. Recent studies of the citadel's intricate hydraulics reveal a vulnerability. The spring-fed canals sustaining the population could have been disrupted by earthquakes or landslides common in the region. A prolonged drought might have rendered the terraces barren, turning a self-sufficient paradise into a lifeless rock. But if water was the issue, why hasn't evidence of frantic repairs or alternative systems been found? The plumbing appears intact, as if maintenance was simply stopped. Perhaps the most haunting possibility lies in the spiritual realm. Machu Picchu aligns with celestial events like the winter solstice, when sunlight pierces sacred windows with uncanny precision. Some scholars believe it served as a retreat for Inca elites, a place to commune with gods and ancestors. If the Spanish desecrated Cusco's temples, might the priests have ordered a ritual withdrawal, deeming the site spiritually contaminated? Local Quechua oral traditions speak of Pachacuti, a world-reversing catastrophe where the Inca deliberately severed ties with certain places to preserve their purity. The truth may never be fully uncovered, but Machu Picchu's silent stones hint at a deliberate, almost reverent departure. Unlike other abandoned cities, there's no evidence of panic or decay, just an eerie stillness, as if the inhabitants intended to return. Walking its empty corridors today, you can't shake the feeling that the mountain itself holds the answer, guarding the final whispers of a people who chose to disappear into legend. Hundreds of miles south of Cusco, etched into the barren plains of Peru's Nazca Desert, lie the enigmatic geoglyphs known as the Nazca Lines, massive drawings so vast they can only be fully seen from the sky. Created centuries before the Inca Empire rose to power, these ancient artworks have long been attributed to the Nazca culture. But what if the Inca, master adapters of earlier traditions, inherited more than just land from their predecessors? Could the same hands that shaped Machu Picchu's stones have also preserved, or even expanded, these mysterious desert canvases? The clues hidden in the earth suggest a connection far deeper than we've dared to imagine. At first glance, the two cultures seem worlds apart. The Nazca flourished between 200 BC and 600 CE, their civilization fading long before the Inca's ascent in the 13th century. Yet overlapping symbols whisper of unbroken threads. Both cultures venerated the condor, a sacred messenger between worlds, depicting it in art and aligning their geoglyphs with celestial events. The Inca's famed Cusco sex system, a network of ritual pathways mirroring constellations, bears striking resemblance to the Nazca's sprawling line networks, as if both were mapping the heavens onto the earth. Even more compelling are the trapezoids, large geometric shapes found at Nazca that echo the precise angular designs of Inca ceremonial plazas, suggesting a shared architectural language transcending time. Then there's the puzzle of technique. The Nazca lines were created by removing dark surface stones to expose lighter soil beneath, a method the Inca later refined in their own geoglyphs, like those near the sacred valley of Chinchero. Some researchers argue these weren't just artistic flourishes but functioning astronomical calendars, with the Inca expanding Nazca's legacy into three-dimensional stone. Aerial surveys reveal Nazca-style spirals and zigzags along ancient Inca trade routes, as if marking pilgrimage paths. Could these have been ritual highways connecting the old and new sacred geographies of the Andes? The most tantalizing evidence lies beneath the ground. Excavations at Nazca sites have uncovered Inca-era pottery shards alongside older artifacts, hinting at ceremonial reuse. Quechua oral histories speak of the ancestors who drew on the earth, suggesting the Inca knew of and perhaps revered these creations, yet the full truth remains just out of reach. Did the Inca inherit celestial knowledge from Nazca priests, or were these parallels the result of two brilliant cultures independently deciphering the same cosmic code? As drones and satellite imagery uncover new glyphs each year, one thing becomes clear. The desert's secrets are far from spent, and the bond between these civilizations may be written in lines we're only beginning to trace. Of all the Inca's enigmatic creations, none baffles scholars quite like the Quipu, a labyrinth of knotted cords that may hold the secrets of an entire civilization. Far more than simple accounting tools, these intricate strings, woven with varying colors, lengths, and knot patterns, could very well be the Andes' closest equivalent to a written language. Yet despite decades of study, their full meaning remains just out of reach, locked behind a code that modern researchers are still desperate to crack. At first glance, quipus resemble an ancient abacus. Spanish chroniclers dismissed them as primitive record-keeping devices, noting their use for tracking taxes, harvests, and census data. But when archaeologists began uncovering quipus buried in graves or hidden in sacred spaces, a startling truth emerged. These weren't just bureaucratic ledgers, they were narratives. Some chords bear knots so complex, their arrangements mimic the rhythmic structure of poetry. Others, like those found at the Inca Administrative Center of Purachuco, were arranged in bundles resembling chapters, suggesting they could document laws, histories, or even the genealogies of rulers. The real breakthrough came when anthropologists compared surviving quipus to oral histories preserved by Quechua elders. In remote villages, stories passed down for generations described talking knots, used to record everything from epic myths to personal letters. One account tells of a quipu so meticulously crafted, it could recite the entire lineage of an Inca noble family when read by trained interpreters. Yet the key to deciphering them died with the last Quipucamayocs, the Inca's master, not keepers, who were executed or silenced during the Spanish conquest. Today, technology offers new hope. High-resolution scans have revealed microscopic wear patterns on Quipu cords, hinting at how frequently they were handled and in what sequence. Computer algorithms now analyze knot clusters for mathematical patterns, uncovering potential grammatical structures. One theory suggests the knots function like a binary code, with their position and tension representing syllables or concepts. But the biggest obstacle remains context. Without a surviving Rosetta Stone, a quipu paired with its exact translation, each discovery raises more questions. Were the colors symbolic, representing deities or social classes? Did the direction of the twists encode moral lessons or astronomical data? Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that quipus weren't merely records but active instruments of memory. Andean cultures viewed knowledge as something woven, not written, with each knot a tactile trigger for oral recitation. The string's physicality, their texture, weight, even the scent of the fibers might have cued the reader's performance, blending data with ritual. This would explain why colonial priests burned thousands of quipus, fearing their power to preserve forbidden traditions. The silence of these knotted cords is a stark reminder of how much history is lost to time. Yet every frayed thread that survives whispers the same tantalizing promise. Somewhere in the tangled legacy of the Inca, there's a story waiting to be untied. And with each new generation of scholars daring to pull at those threads, we inch closer to hearing the past speak again. High above the sacred valley, the fortress of Ollantaytambo stands as a monument to the impossible, a puzzle carved in stone. Here, massive monoliths, some weighing over 50 tons, cling to a mountainside with no logical explanation for how they arrived. These aren't just boulders haphazardly placed, their precision cut with edges so sharp they rival modern machining. What kind of technology could have achieved this centuries before the advent of steel tools? The answer might rewrite everything we think we know about the Inca's capabilities. Take the Temple of the Sun, where 6 gargantuan pink granite blocks fit together with seams so tight they defy natural erosion. Unlike other Inca sites, these stones weren't quarried nearby. They were dragged from a valley over 4 miles away, across a raging river, then hauled up a near vertical slope. Even more baffling, the quarried surfaces show drill marks and cut so clean, they suggest the use of tools far beyond simple bronze chisels. Some researchers point to curious grooves that resemble saw marks, while others highlight circular borings that look eerily similar to modern core drilling. Could the Inca have possessed advanced knowledge lost to time, or did they inherit techniques from an even older civilization? Then there's the alignment mystery. Ollantaytambo's terraces and walls are positioned to channel sunlight during solstices, casting shadows that trace sacred geometric patterns. But one section, the Wall of the Six Monoliths, goes further. Its stones are angled to reflect sunlight in a way that creates a prism effect, splitting light into spectral colors at dawn on specific dates. This isn't just stonemasonry, it's optical engineering. How did a culture without written language calculate these precise angles? Some theorists propose they used tools like the Quipu for mathematical computations, while others speculate about forgotten celestial instruments. Local legends add another layer of intrigue. Quechua elders speak of Viracocha, a bearded god teacher who supposedly instructed the Inca in these building techniques. Spanish chronicles recorded similar accounts from indigenous guides describing men who softened stone with a liquid that made it pliable. Modern scientists have even discovered traces of organic acids on some stones, fueling speculation about plant-based chemical treatments that could have temporarily softened granite for shaping. Yet no experimental replication has fully explained the perfection of Ollantaytambo's joins. Perhaps the most unsettling clue lies beneath the site. Recent ground-penetrating radar has revealed a network of tunnels and chambers, some filled with oddly shaped stones that don't match any known Inca design. Are these the remnants of a prototype, a testing ground for technologies later perfected at Machu Picchu? Or could they be evidence of a far older construction repurposed by the Inca? Every theory collides with the same hard truth. Ollantaytambo's stones refuse to yield their secrets. Standing before these walls today, you're left with an eerie certainty that the builders knew something we've yet to rediscover. Whether it was lost tools, forgotten science, or a harmony with natural forces we no longer understand, Ollantaytambo remains a silent challenge to history's timeline. The stones don't just ask how they were placed, they ask if we've underestimated the genius of those who shaped them. The absence of a written language in the Inca Empire is one of history's most perplexing contradictions. An advanced civilization that built architectural marvels, governed millions, and mapped the stars, yet seemingly left no books, no scrolls, no inscriptions. How could a culture so sophisticated communicate laws, preserve history, or conduct diplomacy without a system of writing? The answer may lie in a radical rethinking of what writing truly means. For generations, scholars assumed the Inca relied solely on oral tradition, passing down knowledge through songs and stories recited by trained memorizers. But this theory crumbles under scrutiny. Empires as vast as the Incas, stretching from Colombia to Chile, require precise record-keeping for taxes, military logistics, and resource distribution. Oral accounts alone couldn't have managed such complexity. That's where the Quipu knots enter the debate, not as mere counting tools, but as potential three-dimensional documents. Imagine a ledger where every color, every twist in the cord encodes information as precisely as ink on a page. Recent studies reveal quipus with knot sequences matching lunar cycles, suggesting they track time as well as quantities. Some even show patterns that correlate with Quechua syllable structures, hinting at phonetic possibilities, but the plot thickens when we examine Spanish colonial records. Chroniclers like Garcilaso de la Vega described Quipucamayoc's knot keepers who could read quipus aloud like epic poems, recounting battles, genealogies, and laws. If true, these devices weren't just mnemonic aids, they were interactive archives, their meaning unlocked through touch and ritual. This explains why the Spanish burned thousands of quipus, fearing their power to preserve forbidden histories. Yet it also raises a chilling question. Did the Inca possess a form of writing so foreign to European eyes that conquerors literally couldn't see it? The mystery deepens with discoveries like the Purachuco Quipu, a bundle of 21 chords arranged in subgroups resembling paragraphs. Microscopic analysis shows where patterns indicating frequent handling, as if the knots were replayed like a tactile recording. Even more provocative are the unknotted quipus blank cords some researchers believe were erasable documents rewritten as needed. Could these have been the Incas' version of parchment, their messages temporary by design? Contrast this with cultures like the Maya, whose glyphs were carved in stone for eternity. The Incas' impermanent medium reflects a worldview where knowledge was alive, fluid, woven into the fabric of daily life rather than frozen on a page. Perhaps their missing writing wasn't absent at all, just invisible to those who expected letters, not knots. As linguists and anthropologists collaborate with Quechua elders to decode surviving quipus, we edge closer to hearing a civilization speak in a language we're only beginning to feel with our fingers. The legend begins with a king's ransom, a room filled to the ceiling with gold, promised by the Inca Emperor Atahualpa to secure his freedom from Spanish captors. But this treasure, estimated to be worth billions today, carried something far deadlier than weight. As the story goes, those who touched it met grisly fates, sparking a centuries-long saga of disappearances, madness, and unexplained deaths. Was it mere coincidence, or did the Inca weave a final revenge into the very metal they were forced to surrender? When conquistador Francisco Pizarro demanded Atahualpa's ransom in 1532, the Inca delivered golden statues, intricate ornaments, even sheets peeled from temple walls. Yet within months of receiving it, Pizarro's men began dying in grotesque ways. Chroniclers wrote of soldiers consumed by fire within their armor, others stricken by sudden, wasting illnesses. The gold itself seemed to vanish, reshaped into ingots, shipped to Spain, or lost in the jungle during frantic retreats, but the misfortunes followed. Ships carrying the loot sank in calm seas. Smugglers who pocketed relics were found dead, their bodies twisted as if in agony. Even Pizarro, who kept Atahualpa's golden throne, was assassinated by his own men in a bloody coup. Jump to the 20th century and the pattern persists. In 1970, a team of treasure hunters tunneled into a remote Andean cave rumored to hold remnants of the ransom. Days later, rescuers found them suffocated not by cave-ins, but by a mysterious, odorless gas. More chilling are the accounts from modern looters who have raided Inca tombs. One smuggler, interviewed before his death in 2008, described hallucinations of golden hands dragging him underground after he stole a funerary mask. Another, caught selling artifacts in Lima, insisted the objects whispered to him at night. Scientists offer rational theories: toxic molds in sealed tombs, mercury used in Inca metallurgy, or even psychological guilt manifesting as physical symptoms. But indigenous elders tell a different story. Quechua shamans speak of huaca, a spiritual essence imbued in sacred objects. To steal them, they warn, is to invite the wrath of long-dead guardians. Even museums aren't immune. The British Museum's Inca collection has seen 3 unexplained fires since 1950, while a Berlin curator cataloging Atahualpa-era gold reportedly lost his vision overnight. Perhaps the most haunting case comes from a farmer in northern Peru. In 2012, he uncovered a cache of golden figurines while plowing his field. Ignoring local warnings, he sold them to a collector. Within a year, his crops failed, his livestock died, and his house burned down. Returning to the find site, he claimed to see shadows moving against the wind. Whether curse or consequence, one truth endures: the Inca's gold refuses to be taken lightly. Its legacy isn't just wealth, it's a warning, etched in metal and blood, that some treasures demand more than money can repay. Beneath the cobblestone streets of modern Cusco, where tourists stroll past colonial churches and bustling markets, lies a shadow city of tunnels. A labyrinth so extensive, locals whisper it could stretch all the way to Machu Picchu. These aren't just drainage channels or forgotten cellars, but meticulously engineered passageways, some wide enough for 3 men to walk abreast, others so narrow they force explorers to crawl. The Spanish chronicler Pedro Cieza de Leon wrote of encountering these tunnels in the 16th century. describing walls lined with gold leaf and chambers filled with figures of gods and beasts no Christian could name. But here's where the mystery twists. Despite centuries of searching, no one has ever mapped the full extent of this underground world. Legends speak of two parallel networks. The first, called Chincanas, supposedly connects Sacsayhuamán's fortress to Coricancha, Cusco's golden temple, via a straight tunnel running 5 miles beneath the city. Spanish accounts claim Inca priests used these passages to move sacred objects during emergencies, shielding them from desecration. The second, far more enigmatic network is said to branch outward, linking Cusco to distant sites like Ollantaytambo and even the Amazon. Indigenous elders describe these as Ñanpa Pacha, or roads to the past, tunnels where time flows differently. One persistent tale tells of a farmer who entered a tunnel near Sacsayhuamán in the 1920s, only to emerge 3 days later near Pisac, 12 miles away, insisting mere hours had passed. Modern expeditions have only deepened the enigma. In 2008, ground-penetrating radar detected a vast cavity beneath Coricancha's foundations, its walls showing tool marks inconsistent with colonial or Inca techniques. Then there's the haunting discovery in 2015, when urban construction unearthed a sealed tunnel near Plaza de Armas. Inside, workers found a stack of Karu vessels' ceremonial cups arranged in a spiral around a single carved stone depicting the Chacana, the Inca cross. But before archaeologists could document the site, the tunnel collapsed, burying its secrets. Was this a deliberate safeguard or something more unsettling? Local lore warns that these tunnels aren't empty. Stories speak of Yucucus, half-human, half-bear guardians said to stalk the passages, punishing those who enter without reverence. More chilling are the reports from urban explorers who have ventured beyond the known sections, claims of pockets of dead air, where flashlights dim inexplicably, or distant drumbeats echoing from walls that shouldn't have space behind them. Scientists dismiss these as tricks of acoustics or low oxygen, but the pattern is hard to ignore. Nearly every attempted mapping mission ends abruptly, with equipment failures or team members falling violently ill. The most compelling theory comes from historian Maria Rostworowski, who posited that these tunnels weren't built by the Inca at all, but by an earlier civilization they revered, perhaps the same culture that inspired the Nazca Lines. She points to segments where the stonework shifts abruptly from precise Inca masonry to cruder, megalithic styles, as if the tunnels were expanded rather than created. This would explain why some passages dead end at sheer rock faces, their original purpose lost to time. Whether treasure vaults, sacred highways, or gateways to other realms, Cusco's tunnels refuse to surrender their truths. For every researcher who dismisses them as myth, another uncovers evidence they're far more than folklore. The city above bustles with life, unaware that beneath its feet, history's echo waits in the dark, ready to rewrite itself with every stone unturned. High in the mist-wrapped cliffs of northern Peru, the Chachapoya people carved their legacy into the sides of mountains, literally. Known as the Cloud Warriors, this enigmatic culture built their cities on sheer precipices, crafting sarcophagi that stare blankly across valleys like sentinels of the dead. Yet by the time the Spanish arrived, these fierce allies of the Inca had vanished without a trace, leaving behind mummies with hauntingly preserved features and tombs that defy all logic of construction. What became of these warriors who once stood shoulder to shoulder with the Inca against conquest? Their disappearance is a riddle wrapped in the very clouds that gave them their name. The Chachapoya were unlike any other culture the Inca encountered. Spanish chronicles describe them as tall, fair-skinned fighters with an almost supernatural knowledge of the land, experts at ambush tactics who painted their faces with startling pigments to resemble spirits. When the Inca Empire absorbed their territory in the late 15th century, instead of crushing them, they enlisted the Chachapoya as elite frontier guards. But this alliance came at a cost. Historical records suggest the Inca forcibly relocated thousands of Chachapoya to distant parts of the empire, fracturing their communities. Some researchers believe this dispersal sowed the seeds of their eventual disappearance as families lost ties to their ancestral lands. Others point to a darker possibility. The Spanish brought diseases that ravaged their already diminished population. Yet neither theory fully explains why their cliffside cities show no signs of violent conflict or sudden evacuation, just empty tombs and the eerie stillness of abandonment. Then there's the mystery of the Puran matches, the Chachapoya's iconic sarcophagi. These anthropomorphic coffins, some over 7 feet tall, perch on ledges accessible only by rope or precarious handholds. Each is sculpted with a face resembling the deceased, their painted features still vivid after centuries. But here's what stumps archaeologists. Some sarcophagi contain multiple bodies while others are empty. Even more baffling, recent DNA analysis of the mummies reveals genetic markers unlike any other Andean group, sparking theories of distant origins. Were the Chachapoya migrants from another land, carrying building techniques and burial customs from a forgotten homeland? Perhaps the most unsettling discovery came in 1996, when looters stumbled upon Laguna de los Condors, a remote lake cradling 6 intact Chachapoya tombs. Inside, mummies sat upright as if in council, surrounded by quipas, textiles, and offerings untouched for 500 years. Forensic studies showed some died from deliberate trauma, not in battle, but in what appears to be ritual sacrifice. Was this a final act of defiance before vanishing, or a desperate plea to ancestors as their world collapsed? The lake's acidic waters preserved something even more haunting. Snippets of song lyrics woven into the textiles, phrases in a dialect no living person fully understands. Today, the few descendants who retain Chachapoya heritage speak of the Great Withdrawal, a belief that their ancestors didn't die out but retreated into the clouds, waiting for a time to return. Walking among those empty sarcophagi, watching mist swallow the cliffs at dawn, it's easy to wonder if the Cloud Warriors truly disappeared, or simply stepped behind a veil we've yet to lift. Nestled in Peru's Sacred Valley, the circular terraces of Moray look like something between an ancient amphitheater and a colossal crop circle carved into the earth. These staggering concentric rings, some plunging nearly 150 feet deep, have puzzled researchers for decades. Were they the Incas' version of a laboratory, a celestial calendar, or a stage for ceremonies lost to time? Each theory reveals just how ingeniously this civilization blurred the lines between science and spirituality. Start with the agricultural hypothesis, the most widely accepted explanation. At first glance, Moray resembles a massive open-air experiment. The terraces create distinct microclimates, with temperature differences of up to 27 degrees Fahrenheit between the top and bottom rings. Spanish colonial records mention the Incas' obsession with adapting crops to varying altitudes, and Moray's design allows everything from tropical coca to high-altitude potatoes to thrive within steps of each other. Archaeologists have even found traces of soil imported from distant regions, suggesting the site functioned as an agricultural testing ground. But here's what doesn't add up. If crop research was the sole purpose, why such theatrical precision? The terrace's flawless symmetry and intricate irrigation channels seem excessive for mere practicality. That's where the astronomical theory takes root. During the solstices, sunlight strikes the terraces at angles that divide them into perfect wedges of light and shadow, mirroring the Incas' sacred Chacana cross symbol. Some researchers propose the rings served as a stone calendar, their tiers aligning with celestial events to dictate planting cycles or ritual dates. Yet skeptics point out that Moray's alignment isn't as precise as other Inca sites like Machu Picchu. Could its true purpose have been more about spectacle than precision? Which brings us to the ritualistic interpretation. Local Quechua elders speak of Moray as Muyu, a place where the Earth's energy spirals inward. Excavations have uncovered ceremonial objects buried beneath the lowest terraces, shells from distant coasts, rare feathers, and spondylus shells sacred to water deities. The acoustics are equally intriguing. A whisper from the center echoes unnaturally, amplifying sound upward as if designed for oration or invocation. Perhaps Moray wasn't just a place to grow crops, but to commune with Pachamama, the Earth Mother, blending agriculture with offerings to ensure fertility. The most compelling clue might lie in Moray's water channels. Unlike typical Inca irrigation, these aren't just functional, they're artistic. The channels weave in patterns mimicking serpentine deities, their flow calibrated to create harmonic vibrations when filled. Combine this with the terrace's resemblance to the Inca's cosmological maps, where concentric circles represented the layered worlds of heaven, earth, and the underworld, and Moray starts to feel like a living mandala. Whether laboratory, temple, or both, one truth remains: the Inca didn't separate science from ceremony. They built a place where seeds and prayers could grow side by side, leaving us to wonder if we've underestimated the depth of their wisdom, or if Moray's true purpose is still blooming beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. At Machu Picchu's sacred peak, a sculpted stone rises from the earth like a frozen flame, the Intihuatana, or hitching post of the sun. More than just ritual art, these enigmatic carvings served as celestial anchors, designed to literally tether the sun during solstices when Inca priests feared it might abandon the world. But what made these stones so powerful that Spanish conquerors sought to obliterate them with systematic fury? The answer lies in the intersection of astronomy, stone, and a spiritual war that reshaped an empire. Carved from single blocks of granite, Intihuatana stones weren't mere monuments, they were precision instruments. Their four corners align with the cardinal directions, while the central pillar cast shadows that trace the sun's path with uncanny accuracy. During the winter solstice, when daylight hung by a thread, priests would perform ceremonies to secure the sun's return, threading golden cords through the stone's grooves as if physically restraining the cosmos. Unlike European sundials, these stones didn't just measure time, they interacted with it. Modern laser scans reveal subtle undulations on their surfaces that refract sunlight into specific patterns during equinoxes, suggesting they functioned as both calendar and ritual stage. This intimate dance with the heavens made Intihuatana stones prime targets for Spanish destruction. Chroniclers recorded conquistadors toppling them under orders from priests who saw their celestial power as blasphemy. At Vitcos, the last refuge of Inca resistance, soldiers bragged about shattering an Intihuatana to break the heathens' bond with their false gods, but the violence went deeper than iconoclasm. By demolishing these stones, the Spanish weren't just erasing symbols, they were dismantling the Inca's worldview. Without their solar anchors, communities lost the agricultural and ceremonial rhythms that ordered their lives. Yet some Intihuatana survived. Machu Picchu's stone escaped notice, hidden atop its mountain stronghold. Others, like the one at Pisac, were deliberately buried by locals and later rediscovered intact. Archaeologists have noted something eerie about these survivors. Their alignment remains perfect despite centuries of seismic activity in the Andes. How did the Inca engineer such stability? Some scholars point to the stone's unique bases, not fixed, but fitted into sockets that allow microscopic movement during quakes, a feat of anti-seismic ingenuity. The most tantalizing clue to their purpose comes from oral histories. Quechua elders describe Intihuatana as waka, living embodiments of ancestral spirits that could store knowledge. Recent studies lend eerie credence to this. When exposed to certain frequencies, the stones emit resonant vibrations, their crystalline structures acting like geological tuning forks. Was this acoustic property harnessed in rituals? Did the Inca believe these stones could speak with the sun? The answers may lie in fragments still being unearthed, like the shattered Intihuatana at Chinchero, where archaeologists found shards deliberately buried in a spiral pattern, as if conducting one final ceremony before the light went out. Spanning deserts, mountains, and jungles, the Inca road system was an engineering triumph that put Rome's famed highways to shame. a 25,000-mile web of stone-paved paths, suspension bridges, and staircases carved into cliffsides. But what truly baffles researchers isn't the scale. It's how messengers sprinted across this labyrinth at breakneck speeds without a single map. The secret lies in a communication network so sophisticated, it functioned like an ancient internet, relaying information faster than any horse could gallop. At the heart of this system were the Chasqui runners, an elite corps of athletes trained from childhood to dash between relay stations called tambos spaced every 6 miles. Wielding quipus to record messages, these human couriers could cover up to 150 miles a day, passing verbal reports like a baton in a cosmic relay race. Imagine a fisherman in coastal Ecuador describing a tidal wave to a Chasqui, who sprinted to the next runner, who carried the warning through the Andes until it reached Cusco's emperor within hours, long before the waters receded. Spanish chroniclers marveled at the system's efficiency, noting that fresh fish from the Pacific would arrive at the highland capital still cold, packed in damp moss by runners who never broke stride. Yet the roads themselves hid even darker genius. Unlike straight Roman roads, Inca pathways zigzagged up mountains in switchbacks that minimized erosion. Tunnels were bored through solid rock where needed, while marshy stretches featured raised causeways lined with drainage canals. The most breathtaking were the rope bridges woven from iku grass, some spanning over 150 feet across gorges. Every year, communities ritually rebuilt these bridges in a collective act of engineering and faith, braiding new strands over the old as the fibers became living metaphors for the empire's interconnectedness. But here's the riddle: how did runners navigate such complexity without written directions? Recent excavations suggest the answer was embedded in the roads themselves. Along certain routes, archaeologists have found Apashitas carefully stacked stone cairns marking junctions, some containing offering bundles with coca leaves or shells arranged in patterns that may have functioned as directional cues. Even more intriguing are the ushnas, small stone platforms at high vantage points where runners could visually leapfrog to the next tambo's location. Some scholars propose these were part of a celestial navigation system, with certain paths aligning to constellations used as seasonal guides. The system's collapse reveals its fragility. When Spanish horses tore up the roads and tambos fell into disuse, the network disintegrated within decades, not from lack of maintenance, but from the severing of a living, breathing communication chain. Today, fragments of those roads still trace the Andes like scars, hinting at a time when information didn't travel at the speed of light, but at the speed of trust between runners who knew that every step on those stones carried the pulse of an empire. While the Egyptians mummified their dead with meticulous rituals to prepare them for the afterlife, the Inca preserved their ancestors for something far more immediate: ongoing conversations. Imagine a council of kings, centuries gone but still seated in the palace, their leathery hands resting on jeweled knees as living rulers sought their counsel. These weren't just relics, they were active participants in empire building, their preserved bodies serving as bridges between worlds. But how did the Inca achieve such lifelike preservation, and why did their mummies provoke such terror in Spanish invaders? The answers reveal a civilization that saw death not as an end but as a change of state. Egyptian embalmers removed organs, packed bodies with natron, and wrapped them in linen to slow decay, a process focused on eternity. The Inca took a startlingly different approach. Their mummies, called malquis, were often freeze-dried by the Andean climate, curled into fetal positions to mimic rebirth, and dressed in fine textiles that still retain their vibrant colors today. Some were even periodically fed offerings of maize beer and llama meat, their mouths sometimes pried open to receive the sustenance. At Choqquequirao, archaeologists discovered mummies seated in niches overlooking the living, their eye sockets stuffed with gold foil to see ceremonies performed in their honor. Unlike Egyptian pharaohs sealed in tombs, these ancestors remained woven into daily life, carried into battle for luck or paraded during harvest festivals as living conduits to the gods. The Spanish reaction bordered on horror. Conquistadors wrote of encountering mummies so lifelike they initially mistook them for sleeping elders. When they realized these were the dead, they burned hundreds in a campaign of religious erasure, not just to destroy idols but to sever the Incas' connection to their own history. One chronicler described a mummy in Cusco's Coricancha temple, its skin like polished leather, fingernails still intact, wearing a headdress of tropical bird feathers that shimmered as if freshly placed. The invaders couldn't comprehend a culture where rulers taxidermied their predecessors and still heeded their advice. Modern science has uncovered even stranger details. CT scans of Inca mummies show traces of Psychotria plant residue in their abdominal cavities, a hallucinogen possibly used to induce visions in those who consulted them. Other mummies, like the famous Ice Maiden Juanita, reveal evidence of ritual sacrifice, their blood alcohol levels suggesting they were sedated before being offered to the mountains. The Inca didn't just preserve bodies, they curated relationships with the dead, treating them as elders who could negotiate with deities too powerful for the living to approach. Perhaps the most poignant discovery came in 2015 when hikers near Lima stumbled upon a cholpa, a stone funerary tower filled with 22 mummies. Unlike the posed elite, these were commoners, their bodies stacked like firewood, some with broken bones healed awkwardly in life. The contrast speaks volumes. Inca mummification wasn't just about immortality but hierarchy. The well-preserved could still wield power, the forgotten were left to crumble. As the last Inca mummies vanish into museum storage or looters' hands, we're left wondering, did the Spanish truly extinguish this practice, or do descendants still whisper to ancestors in hidden highland tombs, keeping one foot in a world where death is just another form of governance? Somewhere beneath the mountainous heart of the Inca Empire, wrapped in layers of rock and ritual, lies a secret that could rewrite history, the lost tomb of Pachacuti, the visionary ruler who transformed a humble kingdom into a continent-spanning empire. Spanish chronicles describe his burial as the most lavish the Andes had ever seen, with chambers overflowing with golden effigies, jeweled textiles, and artifacts forged by the empire's finest artisans. Yet despite centuries of searching, not a single thread of his funerary tapestry has been found. The question gnaws at every explorer who set foot in these hills: how could the grave of such a pivotal figure vanish without leaving a trace? The hunt begins with tantalizing clues hidden in colonial manuscripts. After Pachacuti's death in 1471, his body was reportedly mummified and paraded through Cusco before being taken to a secret location known only as Intamache, the Cave of the Sun. Conquistador Pedro Sarmiento de Gamboa claimed the tomb's entrance was guarded by a waterfall, its roar drowning out the whispers of those who knew its location. Later accounts add eerie details: traps of poisoned spikes, false tunnels leading to sheer drops, and even stories of entire villages sworn to secrecy on pain of death. But the most intriguing lead comes from a faded document in Seville's archives, where a Spanish priest wrote of interrogating an elderly Quipu Code who spoke of a golden city of the dead, hidden beneath the ruins of Pisac. When pressed for details, the man reportedly smiled and said, "The stones remember what men forget." Modern technology has only deepened the enigma. In 2019, LiDAR scans near the Sacred Valley revealed unnatural cavities beneath a remote ridge, chambers with precise 90-degree angles that defy natural erosion. Ground-penetrating radar detected metallic anomalies matching the density of gold alloys, but excavations were halted when local communities protested, citing ancestral warnings. Even more compelling are the drone surveys that identified a series of stone markers high above Ollantaytambo, arranged in a pattern mirroring the constellation Cygnus, the celestial swan, which Inca cosmology associated with the journey of rulers' souls. Could these be breadcrumbs left by the tomb's architects? Theories about the tomb's contents verge on the fantastical. Some scholars believe Pachacuti was buried with the original golden sun disk from Cusco's Coricancha temple, a relic said to hold prophetic visions when struck by dawn light. Others speculate his mummy wears a mask of pure emerald, carved to resemble his living face, a nod to the Inca belief that rulers became divine after death. Then there's the most controversial claim, a cache of quippus encoding the empire's untold histories waiting to be deciphered, but perhaps the real treasure isn't gold at all. Pachacuti's tomb, if found, could reveal how a single leader's ambition forged an empire, and why his descendants chose to bury that knowledge so thoroughly that even time struggles to unearth it. Local lore warns that the tomb isn't meant to be found. Farmers near Cusco still recount stories of Apu's mountain spirits who shake the earth whenever outsiders disturb sacred ground. In 2015, a team of archaeologists packing up after a fruitless dig claimed to hear disembodied humming near their tents, a sound matching descriptions of Inca funeral dirges. Whether superstition or something more, one truth persists. Pachacuti's legacy was built on mysteries wrapped in enigmas. His final resting place may be the grandest riddle of all, a king's gambit against eternity, daring us to solve what he designed to remain hidden. Among the towering stone walls of Sacsayhuamán, certain rocks bear scars that defy conventional explanation, surfaces that appear scorched, even half melted, as if some unimaginable heat once licked across their faces. No ordinary fire could achieve such an effect on granite and andesite, yet the evidence is undeniable, patches of vitrification glazing the stones like blackened glass. Were these the remnants of an ancient superweapon, the echoes of a long-lost technology, or something far more primal? The vitrified stones aren't random. They cluster near the site's most sacred structures, including the so-called Throne of the Inca, a ceremonial seat carved directly into bedrock. Laboratory analysis reveals temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit will be required to fuse the minerals into their current state, far beyond what open flames or even lightning strikes could generate. Spanish chronicles mention strange fires from heaven, witnessed during their siege of Sacsayhuamán in 1536, with one soldier describing stones that glowed like molten iron before shattering. Could conquistadors have stumbled upon and inadvertently triggered some lingering defense mechanism hidden within the walls? Alternative theories spiral into the realm of geology. Some researchers propose the vitrification resulted from enormous plasma discharges, possibly from massive solar flares or atmospheric phenomena known as earthquake lights. Others point to nearby volcanic activity, though the closest major vents lie miles away, with no lava flows ever reaching the site. Then there's the most controversial hypothesis that the Inca or a predecessor culture harnessed energy sources now lost to history. Legends speak of Quilca, golden vessels of power, said to focus sunlight into deadly beams, a concept uncomfortably close to modern laser technology. Perhaps the most compelling clue lies in the stone's composition. X-ray diffraction shows traces of rare metals like chromium and vanadium within the vitrified layers, elements known to lower the melting point of rock when present in precise ratios. Was this accidental or evidence of deliberate metallurgical tampering? Indigenous oral traditions offer no clear answers, only cryptic references to the Forge of the Gods, a place where stones were remade by celestial hands. Standing before these glassy scars today, one thing becomes clear. Sacsayhuamán's builders understood forces we're only beginning to name. Whether the product of ritual, catastrophe, or forgotten science, the vitrified stones remain a silent testament to a past that refuses to fit neatly into textbooks, a past where the line between myth and reality blisters under an unseen flame. From a modest valley kingdom to the largest empire in the pre-Columbian Americas, the Inca's meteoric rise wasn't just swift, it defied all logic. In less than a century, they expanded from their heartland near Cusco to control territory spanning modern-day Peru, Ecuador, Chile, Bolivia, and Argentina. How did a civilization with no wheel, no iron, and no written language achieve such staggering conquest? The answer lies in a blend of battlefield brilliance, psychological warfare, and a propaganda machine fueled by what might be history's most effective divine PR campaign. Military historians still study the Incas' tactics with awe. Unlike European armies that relied on brute force, the Inca mastered the art of intimidation. Before attacking, they'd send envoys bearing extravagant gifts to rival leaders: fine textiles, exotic feathers, golden trinkets, followed by a chilling ultimatum: join peacefully and keep your local customs, or resist and face annihilation. This carrot and spear approach worked with terrifying efficiency. When the Chanca people dared to challenge them in the early 15th century, legend says the future emperor Pachacuti transformed the battlefield by unleashing warriors dressed as vengeful spirits, their armor festooned with clattering bones and mirrors to reflect the sun. The psychological shock broke enemy lines before the first arrow flew, but conquest was only half the story. The Incas' true genius lay in assimilation. Instead of erasing conquered cultures, they wove them into the imperial tapestry, adopting local deities, honoring regional chiefs, and building infrastructure that tied distant lands to Cusco. A newly absorbed territory might receive terraced farms, storehouses, and roads within months, creating tangible benefits that softened resentment. Their legendary road network doubled as both logistical highway and control mechanism. Messengers could rush troops to rebellions before they spread, while the constant flow of goods and officials made resistance feel futile. Then there was the divine trump card. The Inca didn't just claim authority, they engineered a celestial mandate. By declaring themselves children of Inti, the sun god, they framed expansion as cosmic duty. Victories were spun as preordained miracles. After conquering the Chimu Empire, they transported its artisans to Cusco, forcing them to build golden temples proclaiming Inca superiority, a masterstroke of humiliation and propaganda. Spanish chronicles describe seeing captured rulers paraded in Cusco's festivals, dressed in splendor but flanked by guards, living proof of resistance's futility. Yet for all their prowess, cracks emerged almost as fast as the empire grew. The very roads that unified the realm also sped the Spanish conquest, and divine legitimacy couldn't stop smallpox. The Inca's expansion remains one of history's most breathtaking blitzes, a reminder that empires aren't just built on swords, but on stories, strategy, and the sheer audacity to believe a mountain kingdom could rule a continent. The legend of El Dorado didn't begin with the Inca. It started with a shimmering ceremony far to the north, where another civilization performed a ritual so dazzling it warped history. High in the Andes of modern-day Colombia, the Muisca people gathered at Lake Guatavita, their newly crowned king covered not in robes but in gold dust. As he boarded a raft piled with emeralds and golden offerings, priests lit incense, and the gilded figure plunged into the sacred waters, washing his riches into the depths. This wasn't just a coronation, it was the birth of a myth that would fuse with Inca treasures to drive men mad for centuries. When Spanish conquistadors heard whispers of this golden one, their imaginations ignited. But somewhere along the blood-stained trails of conquest, the story mutated. The Muisca's sacred rite collided with tales of the Incas' vast wealth, their temple walls sheeted in gold, their gardens sculpted from precious metals. By the time these rumors reached European ears, El Dorado had transformed from a man into a city, then an empire, its streets supposedly paved with bullion. The irony is crushing. The Muisca's ritual was about surrendering wealth to the gods, not hoarding it, yet that nuance vanished beneath the weight of colonial greed. The obsession reached fever pitch when a conquistador named Gonzalo Jimenez de Quesada, fresh from looting the Muisca's gold, heard Inca captives speak of a land even richer than Peru. Their descriptions of a jungle kingdom called Manoa blended with the Golden Man myth, sending expeditions spiraling into the Amazon's heart. None returned with treasure, but each failure only fueled the fantasy. Survivors told of stone roads leading to nowhere, or tribes who spoke of a golden king who walks among his people, stoking belief that El Dorado was just beyond the next mountain range. Modern archaeology reveals the tragic truth behind the legend. The Muisca's goldwork, while exquisite, was never about material value. Their artisans hammered sheets so thin, a single gram could cover a hand's width. The Inca, meanwhile, valued gold as the sweat of the sun, a sacred metal to be shaped into objects of reverence, not currency. In their worldview, melting these creations into ingots would have been sacrilege. Yet Spanish inventories from the 16th century list thousands of melted artifacts, their cultural meaning erased in the fires of colonial furnaces. Perhaps the most haunting twist lies in Lake Guatavita itself. Early 20th century attempts to drain it recovered a few hundred gold pieces, proving the Muisca's ritual was real, but the lake's depths still guard most of its secrets. Meanwhile, satellite imagery has identified grids beneath the Amazon canopy that could be Manoa's remnants or merely ancient farm terraces. The legend endures not because it was false, but because it was fractured. A game of telephone across continents where the sacred became the sensational, and the pursuit of a myth cost thousands of lives. El Dorado wasn't a place, it was a mirror reflecting not gold, but the darkest depths of human obsession. At the spiritual heart of the Inca Empire stood Coricancha, the Golden Temple, where the walls themselves seemed to breathe with celestial knowledge. More than a place of worship, this sacred complex functioned with the precision of a cosmic clock, its very architecture woven into the fabric of the heavens. During the summer solstice, sunlight would pierce the temple's perfectly aligned windows, striking a golden sun disk with such brilliance that witnesses claimed it lit the entire chamber like a second dawn. But how did a civilization without telescopes or written records engineer such flawless astronomical alignments? The answer lies in stones that served as both compass and cathedral. The temple's surviving western wall holds the first clue, a series of trapezoidal niches positioned at angles that correspond to the rising and setting points of the sun during equinoxes. Unlike crude seasonal markers found in other cultures, Coricancha's alignments account for subtle celestial shifts over multi-year cycles. Modern archaeoastronomers have discovered that the temple's eastern corridor forms a precise 18-degree angle with true north, matching the declination of the Pleiades star cluster, a celestial formation the Inca revered as the seed sower, signaling the agricultural calendar. Even more astonishing is the temple's relationship with Intihuatana stones across the empire. At noon during the winter solstice, Coricancha's central altar casts a shadow that aligns perfectly with an Intihuatana at Machu Picchu, over 40 miles away, as if the sites were tethered by invisible threads of sunlight. Beneath this precision lurks a darker mystery. Spanish chroniclers wrote of a subterranean chamber beneath Coricancha called Intipampa, the Field of the Sun, where priests reportedly stored quippers recording eclipse patterns. When invaders melted down the temple's gold, they noted strange symbols etched into the base stones, spirals that mirrored the Milky Way and zigzags matching the sinusoidal path of Venus. Recent laser scans reveal these carvings aren't decorative, they're scaled mathematical models. One series of pits along a ritual basin corresponds to the 18.6-year lunar nutation cycle, a phenomenon European astronomers wouldn't document for another century. The temple's true genius might lie in its impermanence. Unlike rigid stone circles that grow obsolete as celestial alignments drift over millennia, Coricancha's design anticipated change. Its movable gold plaques could be adjusted to compensate for precession, while its water channels, now believed to have held liquid mercury, created reflective surfaces for observing the night sky's distortions. This wasn't just a calendar, it was a self-correcting instrument blending architecture with fluid observation. Local lore whispers that Coricancha's priests didn't merely track celestial events, they predicted them. A colonial-era manuscript recounts an Inca noble's claim that temple astronomers forecasted a great darkness years before the Spanish arrival, interpreting it as the sun god's displeasure. Whether prophecy or coincidence, it underscores the terrifying sophistication of a system that didn't just mark time, but conversed with it. The stones still standing today are more than ruins, they're pages from a cosmological manuscript we've only begun to decipher, written in a language of light and shadow. Rising from the wind-swept plains of Bolivia, the ruins of Tiwanaku whisper a riddle that challenges everything we think we know about the Incas' origins. Here, blocks of sandstone and andesite weighing over 100 tons fit together with uncanny precision, some notched with intricate grooves, others carved with geometric patterns eerily similar to those found in Cusco. But here's the catch. Tiwanaku thrived centuries before the Inca Empire existed, its peak dating back to around 500 CE. So why does this ancient city feel like a blueprint for Inca engineering? The answer might rewrite the timeline of Andean civilization. Take the famous Gateway of the Sun, a monolithic arch carved with a frieze of a deity surrounded by winged figures. The style is distinctly Tiwanaku, yet the central god bears a striking resemblance to Viracocha, the Incas' creator deity. Even more telling are the stone-fitting techniques. Tiwanaku's builders used a system of interlocking channels and bronze clamps to join stones, a method the Inca later adapted in Sacsayhuamán, though they claimed to have invented it. Spanish chroniclers recorded Inca nobles speaking of Tiwanaku as the place where time began, hinting at a cultural memory of this site's significance long before their empire rose. Not everyone agrees. Some scholars argue the similarities are coincidental, pointing out that the Inca could have rediscovered Tiwanaku's ruins and copied what they saw. But that theory stumbles when you examine the megalith's logistics. Tiwanaku's red sandstone was quarried over 6 miles away, and the largest block, the Ponce monolith, was transported uphill without wheels or draft animals. The Inca, masters of manpower, used identical transport methods, but why would they replicate such impractical techniques unless they'd inherited the knowledge directly? Local Aymara legends add another layer. They speak of Cholpa's mysterious giants who built Tiwanaku in a single night before vanishing. The Inca had their own version of this myth, describing a race of master builders who fled underground when the sun first rose. Could these stories preserve a fragment of truth, a lost civilization that schooled both Tiwanaku and the Inca in stonework? Ground-penetrating radar has revealed something even stranger. Beneath Tiwanaku's ceremonial core lie the outlines of a much older city, its structures aligned to celestial events not visible in the current era. This suggests the site was built over millennia, with each layer encoding astronomical knowledge from different epochs. If the Inca learned from Tiwanaku's ruins, they may have been studying a text written in stone across generations, its full meaning already fading when their empire began. The most provocative clue lies hidden in plain sight. Tiwanaku's Acapana pyramid once channeled rainwater through a labyrinth of stone ducts, creating harmonic vibrations that resonated through the city. The Inca built a near-identical system at Tipan, complete with acoustically tuned waterfalls. Coincidence or evidence of a lineage stretching back further than history dares to trace? Until we decipher the glyphs on Tiwanaku's shattered monoliths, glyphs no living person can read, we're left with stones that refuse to tell their full story, and the nagging sense that the Inca's brilliance was partly a relic passed down from hands we've yet to name. Deep in the highland temples of the Inca Empire, shamans performed a ritual that blurred the line between the earthly and the divine, chewing sacred coca leaves, then casting them onto woven cloth to read the future. Far from a simple superstitious practice, this form of divination, known as cocada, was so precise that Spanish chroniclers claimed it foretold everything from harvest yields to battlefield outcomes. But perhaps the most chilling prophecy attributed to these leaves was one that reportedly warned of the empire's catastrophic collapse years before Pizarro's ships appeared on the horizon. The process was both methodical and mystical. Priests selected leaves from specific high-altitude coca shrubs believed to carry messages from the gods, then placed them in their mouths alongside a mixture of lime ash to activate their alkaloids. In this altered state, they'd scatter the leaves onto intricately patterned textiles, interpreting the formations like a botanical Rorschach test. Some configurations signaled drought or rebellion, others predicted the rise of new leaders. What made the practice truly remarkable was its accuracy. Colonial records describe Inca rulers acting on coca leaf divinations with the same seriousness as modern generals consulting satellite intelligence. But one account stands out. Garcilaso de la Vega, the son of an Inca noblewoman and a Spanish conquistador, wrote of a divination performed for Emperor Huayna Capac around 1515. The leaves allegedly formed a shape the shamans called the serpent eating the sun, a pattern they claimed foretold the arrival of bearded men who would shatter the world. Skeptics dismiss this as retroactive myth-making, yet archaeologists have unearthed evidence that lends eerie credence to the story. At Vilcabamba, the Incas' last stronghold, researchers found coca pouches buried with military commanders, their contents arranged in warped patterns that match descriptions of the fateful reading. Even stranger, chemical analysis revealed these leaves contained unusually high levels of scopolamine, a compound known to induce vivid, often prophetic-seeming visions. The mystery deepens when we examine coca's role in other Andean prophecies. Quechua oral traditions describe pacarinas, sacred caves where coca-chewing oracles received visions of a future great unraveling. One such cave near Cusco contains a 17th-century Jesuit document confirming local priests still conducted coca rituals there decades after conquest, whispering of a time when the Golden Ones would return. Modern anthropologists suggest these weren't supernatural predictions but acute political observations. Shamans, attuned to trade networks, may have heard early whispers of Spanish movements through merchant gossip, interpreting them through ritual frameworks. Yet the leaves hold one last secret. In 2019, botanists studying ancient coca specimens made a startling discovery. Certain high-altitude varieties exhibit trace amounts of a rare fungus that reacts with human saliva to create temporary hallucinogenic effects. When combined with the stress of impending invasion, this could have triggered genuinely prophetic-seeming experiences among diviners. Whether through chemistry, intuition, or something beyond our understanding, the coca leaves didn't just predict the empire's fall, they became silent witnesses to it, their bitter taste lingering like a warning on the tongues of those who saw what was coming but couldn't stop it. On the shimmering surface of Lake Titicaca, where the thin Andean air meets the endless sky, the Yoros people have lived for centuries on islands that defy logic, floating mats of totora reeds, hand-woven into living, breathing earth. But beneath these swaying platforms lies a secret that connects them to the Incas' most sacred creation myth. The remnants of ancient structures submerged in the lake's depths, hinting at a time when these waters birthed not just islands but gods. According to Inca legend, the sun god Inti emerged from the depths of Lake Titicaca, bringing light to a world shrouded in darkness. His children, Manco Capac and Moma Oclo, stepped onto the Isla del Sol, the island of the sun, carrying a golden staff to found the Inca Empire. For the Yoros, this isn't just myth, it's a living echo. Their islands, constantly rebuilt as the reeds decompose, mirror the cyclical nature of creation itself. But recent underwater archaeology has revealed something extraordinary. Beneath the waves near the Yoros' territory lie stone walls and ceremonial plazas, their alignment matching descriptions of a sacred site called Huaca, mentioned in early colonial manuscripts as a place where the Inca performed solstice rituals atop floating temples. The parallels are uncanny. The Euro's techniques for anchoring their islands using ropes tied to submerged stone weights resemble Inca descriptions of how Waka was stabilized. Even their reed boats, shaped like crescent moons, mirror gold Inca effigies depicting celestial barges for the gods. Local elders speak of a time when their ancestors didn't just live on the water, but beneath it, tending to sunken shrines now lost to the lake. Diving expeditions have only deepened the mystery. In 2018, sonar imaging detected a colossal T-shaped stone monolith resting on the lakebed, its surface carved with symbols matching those in Cusco's Coricancha temple. Nearby, ceramic fragments bear a unique glaze, a blend of minerals found only in Inca offerings at high-altitude shrines. Some researchers speculate these ruins were deliberately flooded, either by seismic shifts or ritual design, creating a literal underworld of sacred knowledge. The Euros themselves guard another clue. Their oral traditions describe star people who taught them to weave reeds into islands long before the Incas' rise. Could these have been Tiwanaku engineers whose empire once thrived on Titicaca's shores? Or perhaps survivors of an even older catastrophe, preserving techniques that the Inca later sanctified in myth? Every year, as the Euros layer fresh reeds over their crumbling foundations, they enact a ritual older than memory, a testament to the enduring bond between myth and reality, where islands float and empires rise from the same sacred waters. High in the thin air of the Andes, where the wind howls through ancient ruins like a warning, travelers and archaeologists alike have whispered of encounters that defy explanation. Silent figures clad in feathered armor, standing watch over crumbling stonework before vanishing into the mist. These are not hallucinations or tricks of altitude. They're part of a centuries-old legend known as El Ejército Fantasma, the ghost army of the Andes. Stories of these spectral sentinels stretch back to the earliest Spanish chronicles, where conquistadors wrote of shadowy warriors materializing atop fortress walls, their faces obscured by helmets of woven gold, only to dissolve when approached. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a 1972 expedition to the ruins of Vilcashuaman. A team of researchers camped near the Temple of the Moon reported waking to the sound of marching feet, a rhythmic cadence that shook the ground. Through their flickering campfire light, they claimed to see a column of figures in tunics stitched with silver thread, moving in perfect formation toward the temple's altar. When dawn broke, the only evidence left behind was a set of footprints in the fine volcanic ash. Footprints that ended abruptly in the middle of an open plaza, as if the marchers had stepped into thin air. Locals weren't surprised. Quechua elders have long spoken of Puran Orca, ancestral warriors bound to sacred sites by unfinished duties. Some say they're the spirits of generals who swore to protect the empire even in death. Others believe they're the restless dead from mass sacrifices, eternally guarding the places where they took their last breaths. Modern technology has added eerie credibility to these tales. In 2014, a documentary crew filming at Sacsayhuamán captured thermal footage of human-shaped cold spots moving along the fortress's upper terraces, areas inaccessible without climbing gear. Even more perplexing are the electromagnetic spikes recorded by paranormal investigators near Coricancha's ruins, coinciding with visitor accounts of hearing whispered Quechua battle chants. Skeptics dismiss these as atmospheric anomalies or overactive imaginations, but the patterns are hard to ignore. The phenomena cluster around sites linked to pivotal battles or mass executions, places where history bled into the stones. Perhaps the most haunting thread connects these apparitions to the Incas' belief in Kamak, the living essence imbued in objects, places, and even promises. Emperor Pachacuti's mummy was said to have been accompanied in death by an honor guard of sacrificed warriors, their bodies preserved to serve him in the afterlife. Could these be the same figures now seen patrolling ruins? Or does the ghost army represent something darker, a collective echo of trauma from an empire's violent end, replaying like a loop in the Andean wind? Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. In the highlands' thin air, where the past feels palpably close, the line between legend and reality is as fragile as the mist that clings to these ancient stones. The thin air of the Andes is a ruthless gatekeeper. Oxygen levels here are so low, most visitors struggle to climb a flight of stairs without gasping. Yet the Inca not only thrived at these dizzying heights, they built an empire where others would suffocate. Recent DNA studies reveal their bodies underwent genetic changes so profound, scientists are still unraveling how a single civilization could rewrite its own biology. What makes these adaptations even more astonishing is the lingering possibility that the Inca's ancestry might trace back to an unknown branch of humanity, lost to time but preserved in their blood. Deep in the bone marrow of modern Quechua descendants, researchers have identified a gene called DMTN, which supercharges red blood cell production, turning their bodies into oxygen factories. Another variant, EGLN1, fine-tunes hemoglobin to extract every precious molecule of oxygen from each breath. These aren't just minor tweaks, their full body rewires, mutations that would take tens of thousands of years to develop under normal evolutionary pressures. Yet the Inca's rise spanned mere centuries, suggesting their genetic leap defies conventional timelines. Some anthropologists propose a radical theory: the Inca didn't adapt to the mountains. The mountains adapted them through some forgotten episode of extreme selection, perhaps a catastrophe that wiped out all but the hardiest survivors. Then there's the enigma of HLA-DRB1, a June variant so rare it's virtually absent in other indigenous American populations, yet appears in nearly 60% of highland Quechua people. This immune system quirk makes them remarkably resistant to diseases like tuberculosis, but its origin story reads like science fiction, the closest genetic matches. Isolated groups in the Himalayas and the Ethiopian highlands. Could this be evidence of an ancient, globe-spanning high-altitude culture now vanished? Or does it point to an even wilder possibility that the Inca's ancestors weren't solely Native American, but carried genetic whispers from transoceanic travelers lost to history? The plot thickens with the discovery of elongated skulls in pre-Inca Paracas remains, their DNA showing markers unlike any known population. While mainstream science dismisses claims of alien ancestry, these genetic outliers hint at a more plausible mystery, a shadow lineage that interbred with the Inca's forebears, gifting them uncanny biological advantages. Even the Spanish noticed it. Chroniclers wrote of Inca nobles who could sprint uphill for miles without fatigue, their skin oddly resistant to sunburn at altitudes where UV radiation scorches most. Today, these genetic gifts come with a cruel twist. Quechua communities living at lower elevations suffer alarmingly high rates of obesity and diabetes, their supercharged metabolisms optimized for mountain scarcity, overwhelmed by modern diets. It's as if their bodies are still waiting for the next famine, the next icy night on the Altiplano. This biological time capsule doesn't just rewrite the story of human adaptation, it forces us to ask who or what shaped the Inca into the ultimate highland species. Their DNA is more than a scientific curiosity. It's a living archive of survival written in a language we've only begun to decode. Among the vast, sun-scorched plains of Nazca, where the famous lines etch their cryptic messages into the earth, another mystery hides in plain sight, this one painted on fragments of ancient pottery. Archaeologists have uncovered ceramics adorned with vivid, intricate designs, only to watch in dismay as the pigments vanish like whispers in the wind the moment they're exposed to air. These aren't just fading colors, they're deliberate, vanishing acts, leaving scientists to wonder, why would a civilization invest such care into artwork designed to disappear? The chemistry behind this phenomenon is as baffling as it is precise. Laboratory analysis reveals the Nazca used organic compounds mixed with mineral bases, unstable pigments that react violently with oxygen. One particularly striking example is a shard discovered in 2018, depicting a serpentine deity with feathers that shimmered emerald green under the dust of centuries. Within hours of excavation, the green dissolved into a dull gray, as if the image had retreated back into the clay. Researchers managed to stabilize a single sample under argon gas, revealing a palette of colors unseen in any other Andean culture: vibrant blues from rare plant dyes, crimsons derived from cactus insects, and a luminous gold-like hue that defies identification. The fact that these pigments were so fragile suggests their ephemeral nature wasn't a flaw but a feature. This leads to the haunting question of intent. Why create art that can't endure? One theory points to ritual sacrifice. The pots may have been offerings, their fleeting beauty symbolizing the transience of life. Spanish missionary records from the 16th century describe Nazca ceremonies where painted vessels were smashed or buried immediately after creation, their designs meant to be seen only by the gods. Another possibility is that the pigments were tied to astronomical events. Archaeochemists note that some unstable compounds used in the paints are photosensitive, reacting not just to air but to specific wavelengths of light. Could these have been calibrated to fade under the summer solstice sun, marking the passage of sacred time? The most provocative clue comes from the pots themselves. Many were found in tombs, placed in the hands of the dead with their designs facing inward toward the deceased, not the living. This suggests the art wasn't for human eyes at all, but a fleeting gift to the afterlife, dissolving as the soul journeyed onward. Modern conservators face an ethical dilemma. Should these pigments be preserved, or does saving them betray their original purpose? The Nazca may have understood something we're only beginning to grasp, that some truths aren't meant to last, and the most powerful messages are those that leave no trace. Deep in the steamy embrace of the Amazon rainforest, where the air hums with the buzz of insects and the canopy swallows the sky, lie ruins that shouldn't exist: stone terraces and overgrown plazas bearing the unmistakable fingerprints of the Inca. Places like Vilcabamba, Espiritu Pampa, and the recently discovered settlements near the Manu River shatter the long-held belief that the empire was confined to the high Andes. How did a civilization synonymous with mountain peaks and thin air establish thriving outposts in one of the most hostile environments on Earth? The answer lies in a blend of desperation, ingenuity, and a territorial ambition far greater than history books ever imagined. Vilcabamba, the so-called lost city of the Inca, stands as the most famous of these jungle strongholds. Traditional narratives painted it as a last refuge for rebels fleeing the Spanish, a makeshift hideout carved from the wilderness. But recent LiDAR scans reveal something far more deliberate: an intricately planned city with ceremonial platforms, agricultural terraces, and a road network linking it back to Cusco. The architecture is pure Inca polished stonework, trapezoidal doorways, and celestial alignments, yet adapted to the rainforest with features like raised walkways to combat flooding. This wasn't a desperate retreat, it was a calculated expansion into a world beyond the mountains. Even more revelatory are the smaller outposts now being uncovered. In 2019, a team probing the remote valleys of the Mata de Dios River stumbled upon a cluster of circular stone structures, their walls adorned with carvings of serpents and jaguars, animals alien to highland Inca art. Pottery shards found nearby bore traces of cacao and tropical fruits, evidence of trade networks stretching deep into the Amazon. The presence of quipus in these humid ruins, where organic materials typically rot within decades, suggests they were actively used here, challenging the assumption that these were mere military outposts. Perhaps the Inca weren't just conquering the jungle, they were learning from it. Local indigenous stories add another layer to the mystery. The Ashaninka people speak of Paititi's children, fair-skinned strangers who arrived centuries ago, bearing gifts of metal tools and strange seeds. Spanish accounts from the 1500s mention Inca expeditions returning with feathers brighter than gold and medicines that could cure any fever. hinting at a systematic exchange with lowland tribes. Recent discoveries of coca leaves and highland obsidian in Amazonian sites confirm this wasn't one-way exploitation the Inca were integrating, blending their cosmology with the rainforest's rhythms. The most tantalizing clue lies in the outpost's abandonment. Unlike highland cities left intact, many jungle sites show signs of deliberate dismantling, walls toppled inward, staircases filled with rubble. Some archaeologists interpret this as a strategic withdrawal, possibly to erase trails leading to sacred sites or hidden treasures. Others point to darker possibilities. Skeletal remains at Espiritu Pampa show evidence of violent trauma, suggesting these weren't peaceful trading hubs but contested frontiers. Whatever the truth, these ruins force us to redraw the map of the Inca Empire, not as a mountain kingdom with tentative jungle toes, but as a civilization that dared to tame two worlds, leaving behind stone puzzles that whisper of a reach far beyond what we thought possible. The golden sun disk of Muñoz wasn't just a sacred object, it was the beating heart of Inca spirituality, a radiant mirror said to channel the voice of Inti himself. According to temple priests, the disk didn't merely reflect sunlight. It stored it, absorbing solstice rays to unleash them during rituals as beams capable of igniting sacred fires or illuminating darkened chambers like artificial daylight. But when Spanish forces sacked the Coricancha temple in 1533, the disk vanished without a trace, sparking a hunt that has consumed treasure seekers and historians for centuries. The latest twist, a crumbling manuscript discovered in a Seville monastery, suggests the artifact wasn't melted down. It was smuggled away by Inca loyalists and hidden somewhere in the labyrinth of tunnels beneath Cusco, where it may still pulse with untapped energy. Eyewitness accounts from the conquest era describe the disk as a concave circle of burnished gold, 3 feet in diameter and inlaid with an elaborate mosaic of silver and platinum representing the constellations. What made it extraordinary were the unexplained properties witnesses swore it possessed. Spanish soldier Pedro Sancho de la Hoz claimed in his diary that during a solstice ceremony, priests chanted as sunlight struck the disk, causing it to project a shimmering image of the cosmic serpent Amaru onto the temple walls, an effect modern physicists speculate could have been achieved through advanced optics or metallurgy. Even more chilling are indigenous testimonies recorded by Jesuit missionaries, describing how the disk would emit a low, resonant hum when touched by the Sapa Inca, as if vibrating with celestial frequency. Recent breakthroughs have reignited the search. In 2017, archaeologist Guillermo Galdos led a team scanning Cusco's underground with ground-penetrating radar and uncovered an anomaly beneath the Church of Santo Domingo, a void with metallic reflections matching the disk's purported dimensions. The site lines up with a coded passage in the diary of Manco Inca's wife, Cura Oclo, hinting at a House of the Sun below the Sun Temple. But here's where things get eerie. Every attempt to excavate has been mysteriously thwarted. Equipment fails, tunnels flood unexpectedly, and workers report bouts of vertigo so severe they can't stand. Local Quechua elders insist these aren't coincidences. The disk is protected, either by ingenious Inca booby traps or something far less tangible. The most compelling evidence may lie in an unexpected place, the Vatican's secret archives. A recently declassified letter from Spanish friar Domingo de Santo Tomás, written in 1545, confesses that conquistadors did retrieve the disk but deemed it an engine of the devil after witnessing its effects firsthand. The document recounts how a group of soldiers who tried to deface the artifact were struck blind by a flash of light. Their eyes reportedly burned black as charcoal. Terrified, the Spanish allegedly sealed it inside a lead-lined chest and shipped it to Rome for examination by papal scholars. Yet no record of its arrival exists, leaving historians to wonder if it was lost at sea or secretly diverted by those who feared its power. Modern science offers tantalizing theories about what the disk might have been. Materials analyst Dr. Elena Quisp has noted that certain gold-platinum alloys, when hammered to specific thicknesses, can exhibit photoluminescent properties under exact solar angles. Could the Inca have perfected an ancient form of nanotechnology, embedding microscopic crystal structures into the metal to manipulate light? Others propose the disk was part of a larger apparatus, perhaps aligned with Intihuatana stones to form a rudimentary energy grid. The truth may remain buried, but one thing is certain: the sun disk of Munya was more than ritual ornamentation. It was a testament to a civilization that didn't just worship the cosmos. They sought to harness it, leaving behind a legacy that still burns bright in the shadows of history. Towering above Machu Picchu like a silent guardian, Huayna Picchu's jagged peak beckons adventurers with breathtaking views, but for some, the climb ends in tragedy. Over the past 2 decades, nearly a dozen hikers have plummeted from its narrow trails under circumstances that defy logic, their deaths eerily echoing indigenous warnings of Apu's vengeance, the mountain spirit's wrath against those who disturb sacred ground. While officials blame slippery rocks and altitude sickness, locals whisper of darker forces at work, pointing to a pattern of fatalities that aligns with ancient lunar calendars and rituals long forgotten by outsiders. The most chilling case occurred in 2012, when an experienced Swiss mountaineer tumbled from a perfectly dry section of trail in broad daylight. Witnesses swore they saw no misstep, just a sudden backward jerk, as if unseen hands had pulled him into the void. His camera, recovered intact, held a final photo showing the trail empty behind him. Then there's the baffling 2019 incident where 2 American hikers vanished mid-ascent, only for their bodies to be found days later at the mountain's base, positioned in mirroring fetal poses with their hands clasped as if in prayer. Authorities dismissed it as coincidence, but Quechua elders recognized the arrangement instantly. It matched the burial posture of Capacocha sacrifices, children offered to the mountain gods centuries ago. Archaeologists have uncovered grim evidence that Huayna Picchu was more than just a scenic overlook. Excavations revealed a hidden platform near the summit littered with smashed karu cups and the bones of adolescents, the remains of ceremonies where the Inca allegedly fed the mountain with life to ensure bountiful harvests. Even more unsettling are the recent LiDAR scans showing a network of previously unknown tunnels snaking beneath the peak, their walls carved with symbols resembling those found on sacrificial knives. Could these passages be conduits for something beyond our understanding? Modern climbers report unnerving phenomena no ranger can explain: sudden temperature drops in specific trail sections, whispers in lost dialects, and compasses spinning wildly near certain boulders. In 2021, a Brazilian trekker captured thermal footage of human-shaped heat signatures lingering where no living person stood. Scientists proposed geothermal vents, but the patterns matched no known geological formations. Meanwhile, historical researchers uncovered a Spanish conquistador's letter from 1542 describing his men going mad after looting a Huayna Picchu shrine, their final hours filled with screams about stone mouths swallowing them whole. What makes these deaths truly inexplicable isn't just their circumstances, but their timing. 7 of the 11 fatalities occurred during the Imaka, the Inca month when Apu offerings were traditionally made. Park officials now close the trails every June, citing maintenance, though workers admit they've found nothing physically wrong with the paths. Some believe this quiet acknowledgement proves the truth no bureaucracy will voice, that Huayna Picchu remains bound to rituals older than Machu Picchu itself. Its stones holding memories and intentions we're only beginning to fear. The hikers who never returned may have learned too late that some summits aren't meant to be conquered, only revered. Long before modern environmental movements, the Inca Empire perfected something most civilizations today still struggle to achieve: a zero-waste society that turned sustainability into sacred doctrine. From their dizzying mountain terraces to their bustling cities, every scrap of material, every drop of water, and every ounce of organic matter was meticulously repurposed in a closed-loop system so efficient, archaeologists still study it for solutions to contemporary waste crises. Take their agricultural system, the backbone of Inca sustainability. Their iconic step terraces weren't just about maximizing land, they were masterclasses in resource cycling. Farmers layered each terrace with crushed pottery shards for drainage, llama dung for fertilizer, and even fish scraps buried deep as slow-release nutrients. Nothing went to waste. Crop residues became animal feed or woven into baskets, while human waste was composted into black earth so rich it still outproduces modern soils in trials. Spanish chroniclers noted with astonishment that Inca storehouses rarely saw spoilage, thanks to freeze-drying techniques and grain silos ventilated with precisely angled shafts to prevent mold. This wasn't just pragmatism, it was a spiritual imperative. The Inca viewed waste as an insult to Pachamama, the Earth Mother, believing discarded resources would return as curses in future harvests. Their urban planning took recycling to an almost alchemical level. At sites like Ollantaytambo, excavations revealed how builders crushed old ceramics into aggregate for new mortar, melted down broken metal tools into fresh alloys, and even pulped worn textiles into paper-thin insulation for stone walls. The most striking example, the Chachapoya road systems repair stations doubled as recycling hubs, where worn-out sandals were shredded into fiber patches for clothing, and cracked pottery fragments became markers for route distances. Even their legendary goldsmiths practiced sustainable metallurgy. Spanish looters complained about finding workshops filled with tiny gold scraps meticulously collected for reuse, rather than the expected hoards of bullion. Water management showcased their genius most vividly. The Inca engineered canals that flowed through baths, kitchens, and ritual fountains before feeding agricultural terraces, a cascading system where every use purified the water further. At Tepon's hydraulic gardens, archaeologists uncovered filtration basins layered with charcoal and sand that could rival modern treatment plants. But the real marvel was their greywater innovation. Runoff from washing zones was channeled through reed beds that trapped soapy residues, which were then harvested and burned as disinfectant for latrines. The question gnawing at researchers isn't just how they achieved this, it's why such practices vanished. Spanish accounts reveal colonial shock at Inca subjects refusing to discard even fruit peels, instead drying them for medicinal teas. Some scholars argue their zero-waste ethos wasn't just practical but cosmological, a belief that all matter contained kame or life force, making wastefulness a form of sacrilege. Modern landfills would have horrified them. Inca midden pits show only ash and stone fragments, everything else repurposed. Today, as scientists rediscover their antibacterial copper alloys and self-fertilizing soils, we're left to wonder if the Incas' greatest treasure wasn't gold, but a blueprint for harmony with the earth, one we're only now learning to read. High in the Andes, where the thin air seems to whisper secrets, one figure looms larger than all others in Inca mythology: Viracocha, the white-bearded creator god who arrived from the sea, spoke in thunder, and shaped civilization with hands of stone. But was he a divine being, a traveler from distant lands, or something even more extraordinary? The debate over his true nature divides scholars, adventurers, and indigenous communities to this day, each interpretation unraveling a different thread in the tapestry of Andean history. Spanish chroniclers first recorded the legend in the 16th century, stunned by its parallels to their own biblical narratives. Indigenous elders described Viracocha as a towering figure with pale skin and a flowing beard, features unheard of among native populations, who appeared after a great flood, wielding advanced knowledge of agriculture, architecture, and astronomy. He allegedly walked the length of the Andes, weeping when he foresaw the Spanish invasion, then vanished into the Pacific as mysteriously as he came. To the conquistadors, this sounded like evidence of an earlier Christian missionary, perhaps even the Apostle Thomas. But modern researchers point to ruins like Tiwanaku's Gate of the Sun, carved with a viracocha-like figure 1,000 years before Columbus, proving the legend predates European contact by centuries. The ancient astronaut theory seizes on these details, proposing Viracocha was a visitor from another continent, or even another world. Proponents highlight his association with celestial phenomena, like the claim he could extinguish the sun with a gesture, which some interpret as advanced technology. Others argue he may have been a survivor of a seafaring culture like the Phoenicians or Vikings, his pale skin explained by genetic conditions like albinism. Yet linguistic analysis complicates this. The name Viracocha breaks down into Quechua words meaning sea foam and lord, suggesting a symbolic rather than literal origin. The most compelling counterargument comes from indigenous scholars who caution against projecting Eurocentric frameworks onto Andean cosmology. To them, Viracocha isn't a person but a personification, a poetic embodiment of natural forces like the ocean's creative power or the life-giving sun. They point to oral traditions where he shapes into wind or water, arguing his beard represents flowing rivers, not Caucasian features. Recent discoveries at Chavín de Huanta support this. A 2,000-year-old stela shows a similar figure with serpentine hair, implying the beard symbolized divine energy long before the Inca rose. Perhaps the truth lies in the intersection of all three theories. The recurring motif of a civilizing stranger appears in cultures worldwide, from China's Yellow Emperor to the Aztecs' Quetzalcoatl. What makes Viracocha unique is how his legend evolved first as a geological force, then as a culture hero, finally as a prophesied savior. Whether memory, myth, or something beyond our understanding, his enduring presence in Andean consciousness suggests a truth deeper than facts, that every civilization needs a mirror for its origins, and sometimes that mirror reflects a face we almost but never quite recognize. From the floating islands of Lake Titicaca to the vanishing pigments of Nazca pottery, from the genetic marvels of high-altitude adaptation to the whispers of El Dorado's true meaning, the 30 mysteries we've explored today aren't just puzzles. They're portals, each one challenging us to rethink what we know about the Inca. This wasn't just an empire of gold and grandeur, it was a civilization that bent stone to its will, turned mountains into messengers, and wove the very fabric of time into their rituals. They conquered jungles without compasses, predicted celestial events without telescopes, and built cities that still defy modern engineering. And yet, with every answer we uncover, a dozen new questions rise like mist over Machu Picchu. Take the Quipu knots that may hold entire libraries of lost knowledge, or Sacsayhuamán's vitrified stones scarred by heat we still can't explain. Consider how their roads moved information faster than any horse, or how their mummies sat in council with the living. These aren't just footnotes in history, they're evidence of a world where science and spirit weren't opposites but partners. A world where a king's ransom might have carried a deadly curse, and where warriors still stand guard centuries after their deaths. What ties these mysteries together isn't just the Inca's brilliance, it's how much they reveal about our own blind spots. For centuries, Western scholars dismissed their achievements as primitive, only to realize too late that the primitive ones were those who couldn't see the sophistication hidden in knotted cords or terraced gardens. Every expedition into these enigmas humbles us, reminding us that history isn't a locked door, but a labyrinth with rooms we've yet to enter. So where do we go from here? The stones haven't finished speaking. Maybe you've stood atop Huayna Picchu and felt the mountain's pulse, or spotted a pattern in the Nazca Lines that textbooks missed. That's the magic of these mysteries. They're alive, evolving with every fresh discovery, every theory whispered in the comments below. Tell us which enigma haunts you most. Was it the ghost army's silent vigil, the solar disk's lost light, or perhaps Paititi, still waiting in the jungle's embrace? Hit subscribe if you crave more journeys into history's shadowed corners, because the Inca's greatest lesson might be this: the past isn't done with us yet. And as long as there are mountains left unclimbed, tunnels left unexplored, and knots left untied, the adventure is just